We got Ryan to get us live. Oh, great. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you very much for coming out. My name is Alex Chance, and I work with both Queens and the City of Kingston's Tourism Kingston's new Kingston Film Office. So what we're trying to do more and more is workshops that start to connect the community with the industry and with Queens. Towards all these different new sectors. So a lot of what we do within the film office is we'll be building a lot of the infrastructure to attract and support film and media production within the City of Kingston, but broader media production is what we're expanding into. So what we've been doing is we started with a trial series of workshops last spring. We're now moving into more and more, all in partnership with Queen's Film and Media here in Kingston, and in partnership with the Isabel Bader Center for the Performing Arts. So we're hosting a whole series of these. This is in partnership also with the Kingston Canadian Film Festival, and the presentation today, so there's been an exhibition, now followed by a presentation put on by Interactive Ontario. So with that, I want to bring Carly Beath up from Interactive Ontario to talk a little bit about that.
Hi everyone, I'm the program director at Interactive Ontario. We are a not-for-profit trade association that represents companies in interactive digital media, whether that's video games, e-learning, virtual and augmented reality, any sort of form of interactive storytelling and content. So we do a lot of professional development events, we run programs, we have a big conference coming up called iVentures on November 6th and 7th. We're really excited to be here in Kingston. I think this is our third event in Kingston, so thank you for coming out tonight. Before we continue, I just want to say a couple of thank yous to our partners who helped make the iON series possible. The first is the Canada Media Fund. They're our presenting partner for the series, and as well our event partner, RBC. And so I'd like to turn things over for a moment to Joy Yang from RBC.
Thanks so much, Carly, and thanks to the whole IO team for organizing this fantastic event. I'm thrilled to be here today, and RBC has been a proud sponsor of IO and the digital media industry. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joy Yang, and I'm a senior account manager on the media entertainment team at RBC. So my focus is to help clients in the media entertainment space grow their business, any financial advice and partnering, and specifically, I actually have a focus on our team with the digital media specialization. So this industry is definitely very unique, and so what we're trying to do is build a knowledge base and so that we can do catered solutions for our clients. So before I pass it over to the presentation, I just wanted to run through a little bit about what we do on our team. So in terms of the actual products and services that are offered, so we do offer traditional financing solutions, term facilities, operating line, any kind of financing that is needed to operate a business. But where we actually differentiate is that we do have a specific focus in understanding the industry and working with partners to help deliver catered solutions. So a specific area that is unique is the digital media tax credits incentives from the government. So we actually are able to come in and finance a portion of that to allow businesses to tap into that instead of waiting the 18 to 24 month period from receiving it from the CRA. And we work with a lot of partners, so companies, corporations such as EDC and BDC. Again, we try to build the understanding, especially because a lot of the businesses in this space, the growth trajectories are different, the challenges and the environment are different. So understanding that and working with our partners, we really are able to bring in solutions that really help fit the businesses. Other items as cash management for exchange, and again, extensive industry network. So partnering with groups such as Interactive Ontario and being out in the industry to grow the sector. RBC has been a leader in the digital media industry for over the past 30 years. So we work with businesses such as traditional content producers, non-traditional content producers, video gaming sector, online publishers, broadcasters, e-learning, VR, AR, obviously it's something that we're delving a little bit more to, and technology, software solution providers, and also just overall professional services in this organization as well. So again, our goal is to really help support the industry and gain a little bit more depth as well. So if you have any other questions, I'm here actually with my colleague Meredith, and if you would just like to chat more or learn a little bit more about what we're doing, we'll be here for the networking portion. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenter for tonight, Henry Faber. So Henry Faber, I have a little spiel. Okay. He is the president of the Toronto Media Arts Centre. He's also co-founded Gamma Space Collaborative Studio, a not-for-profit co-working and event space for independent artists working in screen-based media. And he's also an founded an award-winning agency, Bento Box Projects. He has worked with dozens of video game studios and has over 20 years of experience in design and product execution for clients in the film, TV, and entertainment industries, turning great ideas into successful business. So I'd like to welcome him here today.
Just 1 second. Does that work? Are we good? Okay. So yes, I am Henry Faber. Thanks for having me here. This is the second time I've been here to Kingston to talk about this stuff. And I'm really happy to be able to do it and share with students and an appreciative audience who are, after talking to you for a little bit over the last hour, really in line with my idea of a good time. So yeah. So I do community development, project management, and business development, marketing and mentorship for people who make games. And you might have a sort of a preconceived notion of what games are, and hopefully you saw some things tonight that were a little bit different and covered a couple of different range of things. So interactive media in general is what that's about for me. And I do run this space called Gamma Space, and it is for independent game makers and digital artists. And as Joy mentioned, it is a not-for-profit and is a co-working space, basically an open studio space for people to come in and work with like-minded people, connect to various resources, connect with each other. It's about 3,200 square feet in West Queen West. The focus is games on game developers and media artists. We have over 150 members. They're not there all the time, but they use the space as a supportive kind of network and a space for them to do their thing. And we've had over 2,000 events since we opened in January 18th of 2012. There's a lot of events. And these range from small meetups of 12, 15 people all the way to 150 people coming in. Our greatest our collaborators are Dames Making Games, and feel real kinship to them because Dames Making Games has developed a safe space series of policies and practices that have been key to how we think about things at Gamma Space, and we work together to ensure that we have a safe community for anyone, really. And we have this code of conduct that we've developed together online that you can actually reference on GitHub, just like code. You can actually go onto there, and it has been forked and utilized by organizations all over the world. But about them, they have about 220 active members. They're been called the largest, most active feminist game collective in the world. They've had their members have works that appear in galleries. They've been on teams of games. Some of the games that, in fact, half the games that you saw in the arcade today in the Media Lab, or the Media Center, thank you, have teams that are over half members from Dames Making Games. So I didn't make a big deal of it there, but I want to make a big deal of it now because this is really important to who I work with and how I work and think about things. And together, along with two other organizations, Charles Street Video and CFMDC, which is the Canadian Filmmakers Distribution Center, we are in a space called TMAC, which is and I'm the president of the Toronto Media Arts Centre. I know it's a lot of words, a lot of places, a lot of things. But TMAC is a really special and interesting place because it is tons of public exhibition and workshop and classroom space that our organizations are in there, but we open up to the broader community, and that's all artistic community. We have a heavy focus on media arts, but the public comes in as well, which is really exciting, and they're learning things all the time. I was telling some people about, for example, Dames Making Games does about 3 workshops a week there. I run several events there, and they range from sessions about playing games and enjoying them and community building things, all the way to how to use ZBrush or how to do certain coding activities. Last week, 2 weekends ago, we did a volumetric video jam where the inventors and creators of DepthKit came out from New York, and they gave us first-hand instruction in 3D capture, depth capture video technology. And then we put it all into Unity and we made games out of it. So it's pretty fun stuff. I think it's fun. So gamma space is interesting because it sits in this like weird space. I think I can even, can I, oh no, it started all over? No, there we go. Oh yeah. There we go, right? Yeah. It's in this weird space here. Which exists between like a traditional co-working space, this concept of incubators and accelerators, and a community arts org, right? And community arts orgs like Charles Street Video and other kind of organizations that exist that support artists have been around for a very long time and are a very sort of uniquely Canadian kind of thing as well, in terms of how they're thinking, how they're run, and how they're funded by the Canadian government and that sort of thing. Incubators and accelerators are things that we take from startup culture, right? We've heard from like everyone hears about the things that happen in like Silicon Valley and that kind of thing, and we are all kind of growing the next big business. And co-working spaces are just places who don't want to work out of all these freelancers, usually in precarious situations, who don't want to don't want to work at home all the time. But we don't want to be seen as any of those things exclusively. We're in this space in between. We think incubators and accelerators use language and prioritize perhaps the wrong things, right? We think co-working spaces are great, but the sense of community can be fleeting if you're just coming in there to like have a phone call and drink a coffee, and community arts orgs can be a little bit kind of exclusionary to the public in terms of understanding like, what goes on there and integrating with that. So we try to like touch on all those things. Yeah, and what we practice there instead of incubation and accelerators is this thing that I call community-driven project development. And that's social, technical, and business development with the support from mentors and peers. And this is super important because a space like what we're talking about, what Gamma Space does, and what happens in TMAC, is people have the opportunity to work together, show each other's work in progress, learn and build in a lot of ways like you do in school. But what happens when school's over, right? I think about this a lot, right? We have all these relationships that we build, we have these resources, and then we go into the world, right? And we don't have those things. There's no cool lab to hang out in, and you're not seeing your friend every day because you have the same class or whatever, right? Sorry to be a bummer about that. But the truth is that it's really hard to maintain that community, whether it's a community of practice, whether it's like-minded individuals, whether it's people with strong political beliefs. It can be very difficult to do this. But when you have a space like this that is accessible, open, and inclusive, the opportunity to keep that going and to develop into something more is there. And this is like fundamentally important to me. Alex listened to me, rant about a bunch of stuff on the drive up here, and it's very hard to do this. It's very hard to do this. But when I sit here and talk to you and see you responding to this and thinking about the games that you're playing and what you might build and create after and who you're going to work with and what you're going to become, I realize that it's actually the only reason why I do what I do. So I do hope you come down to Toronto and visit. But I do want to talk about focusing on sustainability, and this is really important. And it means what it means to survive and thrive doing what you love and achieving your goals. And I think about this in some very sort of simple ways that might resonate. I think about goals and values, right? And values on this level aren't just like saying that, you want to be a good person, I mean, I'm going to take it on faith that everyone here wants to be a good person, whatever that means, right? But you might have certain other values that go beyond that you are sort of on the world-changing scale, which I think is really cool. And your goals as well, being realistic about those things. I tell this story a lot, and I'm sure Carly and Alex have heard this enough, but I always think about, when you're creating a creative project and you're looking towards sustainability, like what is your actual goal for doing this? What do you want to do? And some people want, a gold-plated yacht, they want they don't care what happens as long as they get that gold-plated yacht. They don't care if it sinks as long as they get that gold-plated yacht. That's all that's important, right? And then there's other people down on the other end here who don't care if they eat ramen every day, and I mean the packaged kind, not like the $15 a bowl ramen. I'm talking about like the Mr. Noodle, not even Ichiban, where you're going through that and you're eating that every day because you don't care as long as you're doing. There's a place in the middle, there's a place in the middle, or that's right, or some gradation along there that's right for you. And I think that's super important to remember, because another thing that is like when you're shooting so large and you're thinking about that on the scale of the goal, you're thinking about world domination, right? And world domination is a very crowded field, right? I think we can find something underneath that. Then we talk about the metrics for success, and so those are, again, tied into that. What makes things successful to you? I know indie game makers who are really happy when they can sell a few hundred copies of their game. They have a day job, but they sell a few hundred copies of their game because people are seeing the value of that, and it scales up, right? And they're doing exactly the kind of game they want to do, right? No one's telling them what to do. No one's sitting over their head and telling them that that's not going to work. They do it, and they're reaching their audience, even if it's a small one or a niche audience, right? And product and customer development. And I think about this in terms of like, you know, the minute we leave the safe confines of our community and our bedrooms and our sketchbooks and our things, and we sell it, it becomes a product. There is something to think about on that level, no matter what, right? We are, especially digital technology, we're at this kind of like intersection between commerce and art, right? And I think about the opportunities that you have to do both those things at all times, right? And this ties into sort of like the back half of this talk, which is kind of thinking about, you know, when do products and projects become businesses? You know, when does your idea get pushed all the way through? Do you want to keep doing that to be a thing you want to do all the time, that you think you can hang your sustainability on and make this a big thing that you're not going to get sick of? You know, all those kinds of things, right? And then the value of iteration, you know, learning things from your community, learning things quickly, learning things from your audience and changing it up, right? And not being afraid to do that. And value. And when I say value, I don't mean what kind of value proposition you offer to someone else. I'm talking about valuing your time and how that fits into that, and understanding the labor that you do in various aspects, whether it's community building to making a product, you know, is something that is valuable and should be valued. And sometimes you can't trade money for it, but there are other things. You don't have to go it alone. So I do encourage you to engage your community. It starts here with the people that you're around right now. Help them help you to create that value, right? So that you all understand what that is. And our group, you know, we do amazing things. We do giant events like Bit Bazaar. And this is like an example. We did this at the part of the Can-Am project that was at Harbor Center a couple of years ago, or Harborfront rather. And we did this big outside thing. We had this thing called Bit Bazaar, where we get game makers. Oh, they're both live. Stereo. We get these game makers, zines and comics people, illustrators, people make handcrafted goods, and they combine and work together to make unique things. And we do this a couple of times a year. It's a lot of fun. We just did it in our new space at TMAC in July. It was super cool. Watch for it and come out and hang out. Submit if you got games and projects. Yeah, but I mention this though because these are the kinds of times and opportunities you start to see, like when you're talking directly to your audience and people that might be buying this stuff or engaging with whatever you're doing in some way, and you start to think, is this the right time? Is this the thing I should be doing? And part of that is like we're so lucky in Ontario, especially, to have so many resources, like not to mention our schools and Interactive Ontario on a professional level, all that, but like Ontario Creates, the Arts Councils. There is a checkbox on OAC grants right now, or Ontario Arts Council grants for video games. I don't know if anyone knows this, but you can go into Media Arts, the stream, and you can check off a box for video games. This is like super cool to me. And yeah, I was consulted on that, and yeah, we helped make that checkbox there, but that's neither here nor there. But I think it's super, super important that that opportunity exists. There are ways to see how this practice may become part of your sustainability, right? Everyone see that Lightfingers game, right? We all saw that Lightfingers game. So I'm the producer of that game. And that game comes from a member, was spearheaded by this really great guy, Hubert Rabowski, or Cube as we call him. And he came and he made that game at a game jam, or not that game, but like a very early prototype, 3 years ago. He like made a prototype of this game, and he had a job. He was doing like web development and all that kind of thing, paying the bills, but he just couldn't stop thinking about this game, and so he became a member at Gamma Space. And he would come in and he would talk to all the other game makers, and he would keep working on it. And one day he said, you know what, I'm going to go to Ontario Creates. Back then it was called the OMDC, but Ontario Creates, and I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to try to get this out the door as a full product. And he asked me if I would help at that point. And then we sat down, we went through the applications, went through the budgets, we did all those sort of things and saw how we could scope this game and make this thing a reality. And the interesting thing is, through this process and, you know, connecting with Nintendo, getting featured by Nintendo at their various events and things, and being very early to the Nintendo Switch, we got to this point where he realized he loved this game so much that he just wants to keep building it. There's a huge audience for this game, of this digital board game. There's components to build, things to keep going on. People love the characters. And he feels that he can maybe step away a little bit from his web work. There's a sustainability coming in from the type of product that he's making, and the response he's getting, and the feedback he gets from the community, and they give him game rules and all this kind of stuff. He has tons of opportunities for testing that he can see without going to a big, fancy, expensive event, you know, somewhere like presenting at PAX or something like that. And he's like getting this opportunity to, like, you know, build something that will have a long tail potentially, and something that he can build on, I don't know, as long as he wants to, you know, as long as there's interest. And these things, though, aren't like just like an all or nothing proposition. And I think that's like I really want to like sort of talk to you about, right? It's exploratory steps. It's exploring within your community, taking risks to go outside of that, developing in public, not relying on secrecy, you know? This whole idea of like, you know, this like overnight success with things, we know this. It's not a thing, right? I'd like to think that much you came out of school and you realize that there's no such thing as overnight. There's absolute lucky breaks, don't get me wrong. There's things that happen and just like people like that. But that's not a science. It's not the numbers. I was talking to someone about math and being magical earlier today, but like that is not a thing where you can bank on. But at any rate, no matter what you're doing, you need to be able to respect your goals and values and be honest with yourself along that way. Those goals and values may change. They might need reevaluation. You got to check in with yourself, but you got to be honest with them, because it's going to help you determine these things, right? Get your work out there, get to know your audience, motivate your stakeholders, engage the public. Don't wait around, right? If you got ideas, don't wait till they're perfect. Okay, there's no such thing as perfect. I can tell you all the bugs in every game that I ever release all the time. They drive me to distraction. But more importantly, consider the kind of working environment that you want to be in, that you're making, and that you're participating in, right? Having access to safe spaces and a supportive community gives power to the tools that we use to create. Doesn't matter if we have all these resources, if we just keep replicating the systems of power that are, you know, oppressive around us, right? And so I think like we have an opportunity, these tools, and to understand what we're really doing when we're engaging with Google, and really understand what it means to have proprietary technology and like all these kinds of things. Like there are part of it. I'm not saying don't do those things, but just be aware of them, you know, and think about them when you're making the decisions about, again, who you're building for, why you're building, and more importantly, who's building it with you. Leverage that community you're a part of, and help it grow and have it support you. And I think if you can do those things, I think you'll find your way to sustainability. I really believe that. I've been doing this now for almost 8 years. And, you know, people come and go, things shift and change, but this sort of core idea still remains, and people use it as wonderful springboards for themselves and help out people with huge rippling effects. Create that space. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about this. Does anyone have any questions about any of the things they've seen in the arcade, or what I'm saying right now, or anything like that at the moment? Yes.
I'm curious as to what you do, like, specifically, like, what your job entails.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So the question was, what do I specifically do, and what does my job entail? And that depends on what particular hat I'm wearing at that moment, first of all. And in all honesty, like it's a big thing. Like in any given day, I'm talking with people about these kinds of topics. I'm negotiating publishing times and deals and windows with Nintendo, and I'm serving pizza at a community event. Like I will do all of those things in a single day. But in the context of digital creation, what is my job? And that is, as a producer for games, it's my job to ensure that the game gets completed and onto the platform in the best way it possibly can, to support the lead designers and team that are making the work, in any way that I can. So in Light Fingers, I designed the logo, I set up a marketing plan, I engaged with Nintendo, I have a project plan that helped us get everything done. If I saw something was flagging or slowing down, I said why. I found issues if I had to extend the timeline to ensure that it needed to be done to protect the health and well-being of the people working on the game. That's something that I did, you know. And also to be reactive. You know, I can honestly tell you that, you know, even working with a large company like Nintendo or something like that, are they listening? Or we're streamed. I'm going to tell you anyway. They'll still email you like a day before something and say, actually, can you get this thing like that we said you can have in 2 weeks? Can you get it like tomorrow? And like you know, you got to make a choice. Like, are you going to like stay up and you're going to crunch? You're going to do that to do that? For a small team looking for the best possible shot, working for themselves and not being ordered to, it's worth it usually, right? But it's a lot different from the kind of stories that you've heard about in the news recently about kind of the crunch time associated with AAA and stuff like that. This is why I stay in indie though stuff. I'm not really interested in working in that particular machine. So to answer your question, everything from budgets, project management, email communication, social media, marketing, getting it done. Yeah.
So that statement, remember to create space in your community for those that are often pushed out. So that's very general. So are you talking about people who don't have a lot of money, people who are LGBT,
Yes.
people who are indigenous,
Yes.
people, black people,
Yes.
new people, immigrants? Is that specifically what
That's
you're talking
specifically
about?
what I'm talking about, right? So what I'm talking about are the people in these things, in traditional incubators and accelerators, who aren't looked at. Like I work a lot with like women-led teams. This is something that's really important to me because so often I go into projects in business, and I come from a background of not games. I come from like web application development and business and design and things like that. And not only are the work of women, you know, is the work of women often not valued properly, if at all, it also, they're passed over, right? So you get all these like, usually, you know, already coming from money, young white dudes get like a million chances to fail, right? And every failure is seen as a success, a little notch in their belt because they're going to get there. This is all just part of it, right? Meanwhile, if you even, if a woman-led team or a woman founder gets to a certain point, makes one mistake, it's like all over. She couldn't be trusted. This is what we're talking about. This is a common thing. But unfortunately, it goes beyond just gender, right? And it's not always a binary, right? There's a huge active trans community in our space that makes a lot of games, some genre and I would say generation defining games. I was talking to someone earlier about Christine Love, who brought the first visual novel to Steam. Visual novels exist on Steam. Do you know what visual novels are when I say that? Does people know? It's a genre that's like a choose your own adventure picture book kind of thing, right? They're often involved with dating and that sort of thing, but there's all sorts of different subgenres, and there's horror and all sorts of stuff. Christine Love brought her game Analog to Steam at a time when they did not exist in there, and it has changed her, like, not only her own career, but empowered an entire generation of mainly trans and queer artists to make games, make visual novels, make this kind of thing. And it's that whole audience supports her work even to this day. She's got a game coming out. She does this thing that I really, really respect, is that she'll do like 1 or 2 paid games and then do a free game that everyone can get. And like she's working on a game right now called Get in the Car Loser, which is about a lesbian road trip through a sort of a post-apocalyptic kind of fantasy adventure, like a JRPG, a Japanese role-playing game style kind of thing. Check it out. It's gonna be hot. It's gonna be really good. Yeah. Anyway, but just to go back to what you're saying, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
So are you able to get money for these people to produce more, or?
It's what I try to do, and if I can't get money, then I give as much space and time as possible. But money is obviously the most important thing. This is why I work closely with everyone from Interactive Ontario, Ontario Creates, Ontario Arts Council, to find and introduce and make those connections whenever possible, and private funders too. I find, that one of the reasons why I've been involved with virtual reality is I've been making the argument that, the majority of, the mass adoption of VR isn't quite there, and it's hard to make money on it. It's very difficult to do that. Instead, let's focus on the creators making the content now, get them making content any way we can so that it'll be ready. So as a result, I've been able to secure like equipment from AMD and from HTC and from Oculus and navigate their complex politics and things like that to go in and ensure that like Danes Making Games has equipment to do this kind of thing, because I think it's really important. I don't care about whoever is working on the next first-person shooter in VR. It's not of interest to me. What I am interested in is the kind of stories that come from Danes Making Games members who have been using and Gamma Space members who've been using game making tools to tell stories in really interesting ways, and now are applying that to VR and making, in my opinion, the best VR content. And it's actually not just my opinion. We take on international visits from artists from all over the world and delegation. We had the Swedish delegation. We had a German delegation of artists, and they all came in. They were just blown away at how much we were doing and how often we were creating, the depth and interest and quality of the work. Because this is just coming. This is what they do. This is just what they do. Yeah? Oh, one more.
It's fine. What are you excited about for where this industry is going? You've been in it for the last 8 years.
Mm.
Technology increases exponentially. Where is it going, and what are you looking forward to?
Yeah. So what am I looking forward to in this industry? I mean, I've got a few different answers for that. And one of them is the stuff I'm talking about now. I'm excited about the visibility of artists, independent artists working in games right now. I want them to be more protected than they are in that process. I want that to get better. If I'm cynical, it will be getting worse before it gets better. If I'm hopeful and being what I think I try to be every day, they will be protected and do better work and get more opportunities and be seen in the positive light that they deserve. That's what I think of first. On the technology side of things, if you want to talk about like where it's going, again, Alex and I were talking on the way up here. Sony dropped the bomb and everyone said, "Oh, the PS4 is the end of its life. It's time for the PS5. Long live PS5." No one knows what it is. But here's the deal. Assassin's Creed Origins came out 2 weeks ago, something like that. Anyone? Okay, this game is epic. My wife plays I watch her play it. She put in 100 hours in this game. It's amazing. So what we do, she's the executive director of Danes Making Games, by the way. And so we get home at 11 o'clock. This is what I do. I sit there with a Diet Coke and I watch her play this game. And it's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. In terms of the amount of expense they've spent on the game is just unbelievable. And after a hard day, you want that comfortable Hollywood moment sometimes, right? You just want something that is made a certain way and you can just sort of expect it. You don't necessarily want to think and be challenged all the time. So it's really comfortable to watch that. And I read these really interesting reviews about this game, and the detail is unbelievable. You can get a crew of women to pilot your boat, your ship, sorry, as they correct you in the game, your ship. And you can get them and they sing their own songs, different from the men, right, that are on there. And they sing their own songs in ancient Greek, It's amazing. It's breathtaking, right? All of the animations are different between the male and female protagonists, right? They recaptured it, as opposed to in Mass Effect where they largely repurposed them, right? They even have different nuances in how they do a number of things. It's absolutely amazing. And I read this review, and it goes on, it talks about all these same things that I noticed, and I was just and the last sentence of this review says, "There is absolutely no way that the people making this game were completely exploited to make this game." And it's true. It's absolutely impossible. There's just no way. They got this game done in very quickly comparatively. And what comes out tomorrow? Red Dead Redemption 2, right? And I have a feeling that when I see Jenny play that game, and she will play that, I will see her play that game, and it'll make Assassin's Creed look like garbage, and that terrifies me. That absolutely, it horrifies me to think. And I know some people that have worked at Rockstar, and they've told me stories, and they put in a ridiculous amount of time. They also were told the standards, well, they'll work on something for 6 months, and they were told that actually it's not good enough because it's not the realism they're looking for. So I'm telling you this because the PlayStation 5 is going to, for people to justify the purchase of an $800 console or whatever it's going to be, right, when they come up with this thing, it has to be better than these things for people to be convinced to purchase them. So what does that mean? It means that AAA will have to work harder, and there'll be huge gaps in there, and those gaps will have to be filled by independent artists and creators. So there is an opportunity for them, like there has been the last couple generations, and that is going to come, and I think it's going to last a lot longer.
Yeah, I mean, even last week we had that whole Rockstar working 100-hour weeks with the writers, and then Rockstar denying them, and then now we're getting reports from developers who've anonymously have confirmed that the working conditions are horrible.
Yeah.
And that Rockstar pretty much tried to suggest that they defend the company on social media by removing the social media bans.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're seeing this stuff, right? And it's all coming out. And the thing to remember is, and I always balance this, as an indie, like as you're doing it for yourself, you're in a precarious situation, right? You are at the very edge of everything. If you're choosing to hang your sustainability on your own work, whether it's games, film, it doesn't matter, any creative pursuit, right? And also any kind of startup, right? So like, how you invest in your time is up to you, right? I'm not going to judge someone for putting in 100 hours a week if that's what they want to do and that's their goal. If someone's working for you, if you're in a position of power over someone else, that's a different story. I'll judge you. Anything else about video games or, anything that's interesting about this? Has this been interesting to you to hear this? Is this cool? All right. Thanks. Well then, thank you then very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
And so there's continue to try out the different stations. We'll be staying open till 9. There's coffee, there's drinks, there's a bunch of stuff down in the Art and Media Lab. So hang around, and for those of you that are leaving, thank you very much for coming out tonight.
Thank you.